So, kia ora everyone, welcome. This is a wonderful interview with my dear friend Clifford Starks, and we are really going to free flow it around. But I was just sharing with Clifford about what I sense as this in-streaming tide of energy. So let's start with that, Clifford. Welcome, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming to this live stream.
Appreciate you having me.
I'll hand it over to you. What do you think about what is the tide of our time at the moment, and where we're evolving to as a
I
species of conscious thinkers?
I think we have a an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that has pressure as well. Um, the cool thing I'll mention on leadership is the best leaders come out when the times are the most difficult, when life gets the hardest.
Mm,
That's when leadership really starts stepping up. Um, so yeah, now we all have the opportunity to do this together and say that as a leader, we're all leading something. And if we're not leading anyone, we're at least leading ourselves. And being able to look within, it's going to give people the opportunity to reflect and look within, because there's so much pressure that if they just look without, it's going to be really, really chaotic and really, really hard. Um, so when we do slow down, when we do take a breath, when we do step back and actually have empathy for one another. Taking the time to listen to one another doesn't mean that you agree, doesn't mean that
mm,
you think, no, this isn't right, this is right. It just means that you're taking the time to listen. Because when you do take the time to listen to someone, they usually take the time to listen back to you.
mm. It's really interesting you say that, because we've come through a time in our humanity, and as a cosmologist astrologist, it's a 1500
Hmm.
year cycle, and it's a massive disruption, and we're coming into this Aquarian age. But when I think about it, the single most standout characteristic has been division and conflict around what is right and who is right. and
Yeah,
and and whereas it is much more, if you can take a step back from that and look at the life within another person and the life within yourself, importantly, it
yeah,
changes. It's almost like you don't have to use the, well, you're just naturally compassionate, which I think is our nature. We're not naturally right.
yeah, yeah.
Do you agree
No,
with that?
yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think we're all right, and I say yes and or maybe but. And the reason I say that is because it depends on where you're looking at the situation. Like, how are we looking at the situation? And I ultimately say the most important thing is, okay, control what you can control. Don't try and control what you can't control, and know the difference between the two.
Mm,
Now, what's interesting, it's not so much the first two, but knowing the difference between the two. That's the big kicker, because that's where we kind of can get it mucked up a little bit. And so, for instance, I'll use something like language or communication. If
mm,
someone doesn't agree with you, it's possible you just didn't communicate it properly. Or it's possible you just didn't communicate it in their language properly. But I think we all, like, I can give an example of something very simple and say, hey, who wants to breathe oxygen? Or who thinks breathing oxygen is important? Everyone raised like, yeah, that's important because we're all doing it right now. And when we can say, okay, we all have something in common.
mm,
Now can we find another thing in common? And then another
mm,
thing in common.
mm,
And then another thing in common. And can we start taking those commonalities and heal together and just start
mm,
experiencing again together? And
mm.
that's where we're kind of tearing at each other a little bit, because we're not looking at the commonalities, we're looking at the differences.
But what you bring up there, and I think this is really important in terms of what we both teach, which is around that self-leadership and that leadership of others, and that reflection, and never accepting a static program, constantly reflecting and challenging, to actually be able to appreciate the commonalities. You have to stop for long enough and slow down and calm your nervous system and get out of your head. Because if you're immediately thinking, hey, you're not vaccinated,
Yeah.
there is no space to find a blinking commonality, because it's like, look, you need to get vaccinated, or, and it continues to be a raging issue in our country, and we're at the bottom of the world and we're way away from everyone. But we've
Mm,
literally had our masks taken off
hmm.
like a day ago. But the single standout factor that I just have really observed is how separated people have become, and
Yeah.
and in that separation, how agitated they have become. Like, I don't know about you, but I work with a lot of leaders, and I can't think of many, yourself excluded, who are not like permanently agitated
Yeah.
and in that
Yeah.
survival mode. And in the survival mode, they are very into, I hear a lot of, this is right, this is right. You're, a lot of judgment, a lot of criticism, and a lot of, we need to take this stand or that. And
Yeah.
unless we actually can pause and really appreciate and hear and listen, not just hear, just actually listen,
Yeah.
we it's a different process, isn't it? It's rather than, it's a natural process, because if you just pause long enough, even in yourself, and slow everything down, you can actually feel the life, and in the life is the commonality.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting too, because you said we have to take a stand, right? So they're
Mm.
going, we got to take a stand. And then I like asking questions to what people are saying.
Mm.
Well, what are we taking a stand for? What is this
Mm.
stand for? And then we ask, is that a big enough stance?
Mm.
Like my stance is for humanity. I do
Mm.
stand for something. I stand for people. I believe in people. I love people. And I know that people tend to respect me, whether I'm vaccinated or not vaccinated, whether I'm wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, because I'm going to take the time to respect them.
Mm.
I'm going to ask them the questions, what do they want? What do you want to
Mm.
be around, and what don't you want to be around? And I'm not
Mm.
going to be mad at you for wanting to be a certain way. Um, if we get nasty with people, people tend to get nasty back very quickly. And
But I
so what I
think
do is, huh?
one thing about you, and I have, because I've written this little book about manifesting, and you're one of my star stories that the editor let through.
Hmm.
But you have this, and it's a really rare ability, to see the best in bad situations. And you've been doing this since you were 4, when presented with a situation which might have not just made you think life was life was bad, my dad is
Hmm.
bad, I'm bad. You actually paused long enough to align with your higher self, your stream of infinite consciousness,
Hmm.
and did the opposite of what every 4-year old would do. Do you want to just talk about that? Because I really love this story. It's like one of my favorite
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I was able to do that, but I do know everyone's capable of doing it. So
Mm.
that's the most important part to me. When my biological dad drove away, um, I remember thinking he's not coming back. I also remember saying, I got to get as strong as I can for me.
Mm.
I got to be able to take care of me. That's what I'm going to focus on. And it was actually me and my mom. I've been very good at having empathy very consistently. The only time my empathy goes down is when the pressure is really, really high, right?
Mm.
And the cool thing is, I'm aware enough to know when the pressure is really, really high
Mm.
and to exit the situation. And what's super cool, if you exit the situation, you can actually come into that situation again better than you were before.
Mm,
What gets people in trouble is they try and fight and force life. And
mm,
in fighting and forcing, they make a wrong turn or a wrong mistake, and then they do it some more, and then they
mm,
do it again, and then this weird feedback loop of, oh, I suck, right?
yeah.
And so when I do see people, I see the best in them and the best of them. And in turn, what's so crazy, they are becoming the best of themselves because we are seeing the best of one another. We are literally just mirrors of each other.
Mm,
That's the name of the game. And when we realize, like, if I'm getting mad at someone, I'm going to bring out the ugliness in them, like every single time. But if I can love them and I can care for them and truly love them, loving a
mm,
person means understanding their needs, their wants, their desires, because they'll in turn want to do the same for you. And some people say, like, ah, that's not true. Well, it is true because you've literally just created your reality without even realizing that you're doing it. If you think they're not going to care about you, you've already proven it. So you've just proven the fact that, well, I'll hold up this mirror. No, you're holding up a synthetic mirror that's
mm,
saying, I want something from you.
mm.
How about
So,
not wanting anything
so
and just accepting?
do you think that strength, when you say strength, with just knowing who you really are and knowing at the heart of yourself there was love? Do you think that, because
Yeah,
you talk about being strong, and I know a lot of your career has been, you know,
yeah,
evidence
yeah.
in there, but behind that strength, there's this
Hmm.
incredible compassion and love, and that before you can give that and have that for others, you've got to have that yourself. And I think that's what I always admire so much about your origin story, is that at the
Hmm.
tender age of 4, when most kids, most of the rest of the world, most of the rest of humanity would say, I'm shit, my dad just left us,
Hmm. Hmm.
I've done something wrong. Like, you did not do that. You were able to give love to yourself then, and that is why you can be strong now. Would you agree with that? Is strength love?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I look at so I had a question on a podcast. They go, "Are you a fighter or are you a lover?" And I said, "I am both. I am both
Ooh.
fighter and both lover.
Mm,
Um, I will fight for what I want. I
mm,
will stand for something. Just as I said, like, yeah, I'm standing for something. I'm standing for humanity.
mm,
And when we're like, well, I gotta stand for this thing over here, it's sometimes as asinine. And yes, I'm going to an extreme right now. But if I'm standing for a certain food, right? Like I like a certain food and someone else likes a different food from me. Well, now you're a piece of crap because I like this food and you don't like the food that I like. So you have an issue. That's what it's kind of turning into a little bit.
mm,
And we have all of these. What's interesting, me and you, we're having a conversation. We're not fighting with each other. We don't have anything going on. Did we need laws to set us up to have a kind conversation with each other? Did we need a bunch of laws where I needed to
mm,
read these laws and you needed to
mm,
read these laws and, like,
mm.
all right, now you guys can go have a conversation?
You're talking about a person who trained in the law and who got to the end of her law degree and was like, oh shit, I didn't actually realize that law was about rules. I can't be a lawyer. Seriously,
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I didn't even know. Like, I had my degree. I was in a law office. I was like, what are you talking about? I have to follow these rules. That sucks.
Yeah. And there
But
it
yes.
is. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Amazing.
we need to implement all of these laws so
Mm,
that two people can treat each other right.
mm,
I don't think that's necessarily true.
mm. But treating each other right comes from a place of standing still. And it took me a long time to actually, because my pattern is conflict and relationship, because I had a very tumultuous early life and life was not safe. And we have
Hmm.
legions of warfare in our lines. We have, battles are in every, they're in my blood, really. And for
Hmm.
definitely culturally and in a whānau level, a family level. So I didn't even realize how much how much of this I'd accepted, and how much division and conflict and rage and powerlessness was in there, until I actually
Hmm.
really stood still. And it still was hard for me to stand still. What you
Hmm.
described as being able to take yourself out of a situation, that is really difficult. That takes
Yeah.
a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah. I look at, so I go back to my yes and or maybe but.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
the reason I go into that is because life's a game of perception, right?
Mm,
So our perception is our reality. So if I say to you, Caramel, you're perfect and you're imperfect. You're whatever you are in the moment that you're in it. That's
mm,
it. And so the longer you stay in a certain moment, the easier it's going to be in that moment. But the longer you're in the other moment, the easier it will be to be in that moment.
mm,
And life's a moment by moment basis. So I'm not going to step there and say like, "Oh, well, you were this in this moment." Well, now I'm just bringing you back to that moment. Why don't I take you to the moment that you want to be, who you want to be, where you
mm,
want to be?
mm. So tell me a little bit about how you're working with leaders at the moment, because I really am always fascinated by how
Yeah,
you
yeah.
put all of this together and walk the talk.
Yeah, I'm actually so I'm connecting with powerhouses who want to impact a lot of lives on the journey.
Mm,
And I'm also connecting with moving company owners as well. The reason being, me and my business partner, he is a moving company owner, and he's put himself in a position to where it's very lucrative and he could
mm,
walk away from it with automated processes. So what we're doing is we're helping these businesses put their systems in place, give them the right support along the way,
mm,
and service them effectively so that they
mm,
can be successful.
mm. And when I was talking with you about the kind of essence of your business, you said system support and success, which you just kind of encapsulated. So
Hmm.
specifically, have you? This is because it's more generic than the niche of moving. You work with a range of different leaders, don't you? Or is this specific? Like, have you narrowed your focus down into
Yeah,
this
so
industry?
I'm narrowing deep into that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm planning on going wide from there.
Mm,
When it comes to leaders, they fire me up. They
mm,
give me my passion.
mm,
I love connecting with them, and they, just as you talk about having those ideas,
mm,
that's what leaders do, and leaders get better and better as they go through their journey on having better and better ideas for themselves and for their community.
mm,
So when it comes to connecting with leaders, because I am about pushing the edge,
mm,
I have a background in fighting in the UFC and Bellator.
mm,
So I'm going to go into places that's where the stakes are very, very high. Um,
mm,
I feel comfortable there. I
mm.
like being there. I like being in that place. I've realized quickly not everybody likes being in that place. So
No.
I only ask people who do like going to their edge, who do like seeing who they can become, who do like stretching out of their
Mm,
comfort zone.
mm,
Come on in, because
mm,
I love that ride and I want
mm.
to love it with other leaders who love that ride too.
And I think the moving companies is actually quite a good analogy for where you step in and step out and actually take upon, it's kind of interesting that it's a very fluid. There's
Yeah.
energy in the challenges that you've taken on in your life, isn't there? Aside from those
Hmm.
two little boys at home and all
Yes,
their movement
yes, yes.
energy.
And I was mentioning, so I don't even know if I ever told you this though. My business partner has 12 kids,
Oh my God.
right?
Really? Wow. What, all his
Well,
own?
because you gotta think about this too. Like, who would be a business partner with me? someone who's kind of crazy and outrageous and who wants to live on their edge too. So
Oh
I'm
my
just like,
God. 12 children. Just to one
yes,
wife?
yep. So,
Wow.
well, 8 kids on his own, and I believe it's 4 that are adopted. I would have to ask him on that
Help. That's quite amazing.
though.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's quite young too, isn't he? He's not like real,
He
he's
is
not in his
41.
60s.
He's 41. Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing. We're big
So talk
families
about putting
down here.
systems in place.
Oh, and so has he got it? He obviously has a similar philosophy to you around compassion. You have to be compassionate with 12 children. Like, how
Oh
do they
yeah,
all,
yeah, yeah,
even
100%.
feeding them? Man.
Yeah. Well, he actually did a mission, and I think it was in Mexico. I don't remember. I would have to ask him again.
Mm,
But he did a mission. He did that for 2 years. And he just took so many insights from doing that process. Like that's the other thing.
mm,
Being being empathetic with another person allows you to learn something. It
yeah.
opens your heart and it opens your mind. And it
Mm,
allows you to learn something that you didn't know before.
mm,
When you're a closed mind, you already have what you have. So you won't put anything else in it. And you're not putting anyone else's essence or belief systems in there. And there's a saying, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Everyone has
mm,
something to deliver. Everybody
mm.
has something. You just have to be willing to listen.
When you were saying that before, and I really love this as well because I've never really heard of this, but we're all walking each other home.
Yeah, yeah, we're all walking each other home.
And I really like that. I just think that that's such it really makes me think differently. Like, how are we walking our fellow humans home?
Yeah, yeah,
Whether
100%.
at every different level, if we look at that journey, again, the movement and the journey, it can really make you more cognizant of the journey that you're taking together, can't it?
100%. Yeah.
Mm,
And it just,
mm,
when you have appreciation and love for your own journey,
mm,
like even you saying, like, Cliff, it's hard sometimes, isn't it? Like, it's hard. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it is. Life
mm,
is filled with challenges and ups and downs and lefts and rights and everything else in between. And sometimes when we hear the right voice who says the right message, that message will resonate with the right person to say,
mm,
"Oh, so there is a chance for me."
mm,
So every time you speak, you're not only um empowering yourself, you're empowering others along the way.
mm. Can you talk to me a little bit about the power of six that you use in your work and because you've
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
intrigued. What is
So
the
as
power of six?
I'm going through my journey
Mm,
and I'm like, "Holy crap. Okay, so it comes down to inner work,
mm,
principles and philosophies, frameworks, and then strategies and tactics. And this is in sports, this is in relationships, this is in entrepreneurship, this is in everything that you do. Now you're going to focus in on what it is that you're focusing in on, but it's these principles and philosophies that are building the foundation around your journey. And so I start with clarity, confidence, and commitment, which is the first principle. It's the 3 C's, I call it. And when you're clear on what you want, just get really clear on it. And the
mm,
more specific you are, the clearer you are of that
mm,
process. And with that clarity comes confidence. Like you're going to
mm,
be more confident when you're clear on what it is that you're looking to do, because now at least you know what actions to take and what actions not to take. If I'm looking to lose weight, I'm probably not going to go to the bar and drink. It's not going to effectively serve me in any way. From confidence comes commitment, and confidence meaning, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, right? To move towards where I want to go. Now, the cool thing is, this is what people tend to miss. If you make a mistake, it's not a mistake, it's a learning lesson.
mm. Yeah,
Because the second
yeah.
you do something that takes you off course, now you know, okay, this took me off course. Now, how do I get back on course?
Mm,
Do I bring in a coach? Do I bring in a consultant? Do I bring in a friend? Do I bring in a support system? What do I bring in? Do I bring in accountability? Or do I bring in some sort of stressor that I don't want to make sure that I don't go off course again? There's a bunch of ways to go about this. So clarity, confidence, commitment. And then from there, I go into the game plan. I say, if it's measured, it's managed. So when
Mm.
you measure something, you're going to
Mm.
manage that thing. Now, if you're trying to measure too many things, it becomes unmanageable. So if you're measuring like 10 things, then it might be too much. So you only want to measure like one or two things. What are
Mm.
those really important factors? So I'll go in business specifically. If you're measuring your lead flow and your conversion to sell, like just measure those two things. Don't
Mm.
measure a whole bunch of other things. Don't go all nuts and say like I need to measure this, and just lose control of the whole animal. Just say what two things am I going to measure, and get
Mm.
really specific on those measurements.
Mm.
The third is passionate action, and that's do what you love, or if you're gonna do what you don't love, at least make sure that thing that you're doing is getting you to what you love. So I'll give you an example. Um, when I was an athlete, there were these hills that I hated running, like with a passion. They were not fun. They were so hard,
Mm.
but I was passionate in winning and competing at a high level. And so when I would run those hills, I would think
Ah,
about the thing that I wanted to get to. I
yeah.
wasn't thinking about those hills because if I
Mm.
thought about the hills, I'd be slacking on the hills and just be like, "Ah, these things suck." So I'm like, all right, let me think of the thing that I want to get.
Mm.
And that would help me run the hills in the way
I
that I
think we
needed to
all
run
do
them.
that with hills. Like running hills
Huh?
is not fun.
Yeah, I don't know
Do you
anyone
still
who
run
just said,
them?
can you sign me up to running some hills? Like I've never done it, and no one on the team has ever done it. Maybe there's a crazy person out there who absolutely loves doing
Loves
that.
them.
I
Yeah.
don't love it. I love
No.
winning though. I love getting my hand raised. I love that whole process. So like let me focus on that so I can do this right now.
Mm.
The fourth is unshakable faith. And it's what's interesting with unshakable faith is I say practice faith early and often so it's there when you need it most. And so
Mm.
when you're practicing, like gratitude's a very powerful thing to have.
Hmm.
But if you're just waiting to have it when you need it, it's going to be hard to conjure that up. So you want to practice having gratitude on a regular basis, on a consistent basis.
How do
So
you
when,
practice having gratitude?
oh,
Just
I just
interested.
ask, what am I grateful for?
Mm.
Like even right now, I'm grateful to be able to connect with you and talk
Mm.
with you. Love your energy, love your smile, love what you're about, and love you as a support system. So I'm grateful for every moment. And I think about that. My
Mm.
mind literally functions on
Mm.
gratitude
Which
because I've done it for so long.
and that gives you I have this particular hay tiki, which is a guardian. It was made from
Hmm.
amazing stone. He's called Maileha, which means
Yeah,
gratitude, and I wear him like
I
I
love it.
need to
I love
I
it.
need
I love
something
it.
tangible.
Yeah.
I need to beat my heart. Gratitude, gratitude. But the other thing is I'm always interested in gratitude because I do gratitude for feeling states as opposed to things.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for this stuff, but but it's the feelings that I'm grateful for. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that, I pretty much always see something good in another person. I can pretty much always see the stream of light.
Yes.
You've
Yes.
given me another technique, which is to imagine myself holding hands with them and walking home. There are some people I probably don't want to do that with, but I'm going to try it
Yeah.
metaphorically.
No, I'll
Anyway.
tell you like because we're all human, right?
Mm.
And it's I never deny a person's humanity. And so it's that
But walking
process.
home with them, like, I'm grateful you've made me think about this, but
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, Jim Rome, he says, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And so I just remember that.
Mm.
Because sometimes life's gonna get so damn hard. It is. There's gonna be times where I'm like, I don't feel like having patience. I don't feel like giving space. But if I can think of messages like that, it's
Mm.
going to allow me that ability to just give a little bit more, to just
But
do a little
taking the
bit more.
person home, like seriously, I'm really going to hold you to this. But you, once you give me something, I never let it go. I'm like a dog with a bone. Like you're to think of your worst, like the person that has given you the most grief in your life, you'd actually hold hands with them and walk home with them. Walk up
Yeah,
the hill saying, I love
yeah.
this hill. I love you, brother.
But I will say, and I totally get what you're saying, totally do. Because some people might want to push people off of like the Grand Canyon or something like that. Don't do that, people. Don't do it. But I will say this. Um, when you can do that with someone,
Mm,
you have so much strength.
you do.
Like when you can feel like I love you and I love me, nothing can touch you. That's the name of the game. Nothing can touch you anymore. And you
Mm,
are able to slow down. It's
mm,
when you are feeling that urge where you have to go into it and lean into it, and it's like, I can't step back, I can't slow down because this.
mm,
Okay, I get it.
mm.
It happens. We're human. Totally get it. There's consequences to everything that we do. Are you ready to take a breath yet?
Mm.
Cool.
So practice is number 4.
Yes.
Do not distract from the power of 6, because we're going to
Yes.
finish this. This has been a big thing for
Unshakable
me. In
faith.
2022, I am finishing things.
Practicing strong. Yes, practicing strong. And you're always a finisher
Mm,
because you were created, right? That's the other thing. We get ourselves wrapped up in, I did this wrong and I messed up.
mm,
Well, what did you do right? Because when we start feeling like, okay, let's focus on what we did right. Focus on what we did wrong, and leads into the fifth principle, which is take extreme responsibility. And
mm,
extreme responsibility, it goes back into control what you can, don't try and control what you can't, and know the difference between the two.
mm. It's very interesting you say that, because in my
Hmm.
book, that is probably one of the things that I put right up the front, and I'm very passionate about this. The first law of the universe is free will. You are 100% free to think
Hmm.
and feel, and nobody controls that. So when you understand that as a radical concept for yourself, no one is making you think and feel the way you are other than yourself,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you can take radical responsibility for your choices, and even own them as choices. Like, a lot of people have no idea
yeah,
that they are making choices every day, even just not to make a choice. That's actually a
yeah,
choice, and
100%.
it's so powerful. I mean, you have to have such powerful intent, don't you, to be a USC fighter and to do the work that you do, to be a parent, to be a husband,
Yeah,
a good friend, a business partner. All of those are choices and require intent.
yeah,
They
yeah.
make us
And
powerful and strong.
we, well, we're so powerful and strong, and
Mm,
that's the game I always play in, because sometimes we'll look at the things that we can't control and we'll hold on to them.
mm,
It's like, why are you holding on to that? It's not
mm,
helping you. It's not serving you in any way. And it would be like, if I took, this is where it gets interesting. See, we look at powerful and strong as meaning, okay, if it's not in the physical realm, it doesn't exist. That's not true.
mm,
If it exists in your mind, it exists somewhere.
mm,
And in existing in your mind, you can actually take the actions to make it exist in reality. So if I take a person who can't even do one push up and I'm telling them how weak they are and how scrawny they are and how incapable they are, how have I served them?
mm,
But if I tell them how capable they are and what they can become and are becoming, what they are becoming, they're in the becoming of it just for doing the push up. just for the attempt at the push-up. And then they come back and do it again. And then we do it again.
Mm,
And then we do it again. And then eventually, holy crap, I did 5.
mm,
Awesome. So you went from 1 to 5.
mm,
You think we can get to 10? Well, they're already in that excitement state because the confidence, the confidence of going from 1 to 5 has committed them to something new
mm,
and better.
mm,
And so they're like, oh, maybe I can. And that's when they become a badass.
mm,
That's the name of the game.
mm.
There's greatness in us. And that's the sixth principle,
Yeah, I was going
which
to
is,
say, that's
yeah,
like,
yeah, that is the greatness within.
mm,
To just be like, it, there's a saying, God doesn't even bet on the living.
mm,
Because if you're alive, you have something. That's the name of the game. And
mm,
so this is me speaking to everybody in the audience. We're
mm,
all capable. We're all capable of coming together and
mm,
creating something amazing.
mm,
But we have to come together to do it.
I really like that, the coming together. I'm still not going to walk everybody home, but
Well, the beauty of it is you only have 2 hands. So you get to choose the ones you want to walk home. You don't have to walk home hand in hand with certain people. You just be like, oh, that
No.
person's over there at that side.
No, but I love that analogy because it does, yeah, just it it's a bit it gives you cause to think about how you're showing up with others,
Mhm.
how you are connecting with others, how you are leading your own precious energy to combine with others. It really, yeah, I really like the way and the way that you use movement and journeying to share your message, Clifford. It's powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So
And high five, we got through it. We got through the power of 6.
I know, that's amazing. 6 steps, and there's a lot of complexity there in your
Yeah,
model.
yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of complexity, but
Adds
there's
the
also,
depth.
yeah, the depth.
Mhm.
But underneath it, there's a very solid foundation, which is based around connection, gratitude, love, honoring, compassion, kindness.
Mhm.
Yeah, the modi, the energy is strong.
Yes.
Mm. That's awesome. So just one thing to leave us and the audience with.
Okay, that works for me.
Leave us. Hit us with one
If
thing.
you're still here, thank you very much
Mhm.
because you could have been anywhere and you decided to be with us, so much appreciated. Um, I always want to remind people that there's greatness in them and it's up to them to express that because we get one life here and we want to express that life in the deepest, most passionate way that we can. And that all always starts with asking, what is my dream? And have I accomplished it? And if I haven't, why? Because just that question will allow you to take the steps necessary to make that dream a reality.
Oh, that's beautiful, my friend. And if we can just give, I just want to leave, I can leave some links for you, but just so it's in the recording as well, would you like to share with the audience how people can get in touch and reach out to you if they're interested in talking with you further?
Yeah, yeah. So you can reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. Just look Clifford Starks. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Clifford Starks as well. See
Mm.
a guy smiling like this.
Got a big smile.
Yes. Yes.
Once again, thanks for everyone for listening to that. I hope you're inspired by the wonderful Mr. Starks, and thank you, Clifford. It's always a pleasure to connect with you in
Yes, Carmelle. Thank
this
you.
space.
Appreciate you as always.
Okay, thank you.